Hi, Annalisa Six here with Lady of Leisure and the Sober Curator to give you your 2023 January horoscope for the sign of Pisces, rising and sun. Pisces, I didn't forget about you. This is the last video that I'm taking for the zodiac, and I started them yesterday. Today is New Year's Day. Happy New Year. Saved you for last, and my energy cup has been somewhat refilled, so hopefully I'll be a little bit more together than I was last night. Pisces, this is an interesting time for you astrologically this month of January. We have three major things that we start the year out with. We have Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. Mars is finishing up its retrograde cycle in Gemini the first couple weeks of January. And then we also have Uranus retrograde in Taurus that is also finishing up its retrograde in Taurus. The other thing that's happening at the beginning of January is Venus is entering the sign of Aquarius on January 3rd. And that's going to be a really auspicious time for all of us and where we have Aquarius in our chart. So the first thing that I'm going to start with is the Mercury retrograde and where it's happening for the horoscope of Pisces. Mercury retrograde in Capricorn has been kind of influencing the way that we think about how we're communicating more practical and work-oriented type things on a whole. So a lot of people have been having more kind of tension in those areas of life. For you specifically, it's influencing the friendship circles that you operate within. So your group associations and people that you share your life with in a more extroverted way. And so what happens a lot of times for water signs specifically when we have an Earth Mercury retrograde is that we are getting asked to kind of learn to be less emotional about how we're communicating things and think more about the practical and linear side of what it is that we want to articulate, which can be really hard for water dominant people, especially if you lack a lot of earth in your chart. And so everybody's different. You might be a Pisces that has a lot of earth in your chart, and being practical and linear is easy for you. Either way, Pisces is very emotional and very sensitive, and Capricorn has a lot to do with boundaries, which can also be very hard for Pisces to establish with other people. So a big theme for Pisces during this Mercury retrograde cycle in Capricorn is learning how to set boundaries with the groups of people or the social circles that you're a part of or your friends. Mercury is going to be retrograde until the 18th, and then we have about a 10-day shadow period afterwards. Some people use a shorter shadow period, but Pisces is so sensitive that I think 10 days is definitely something to kind of plan for. The whole month of January, we're kind of having this start to the month that feels slow. Like it's not like we're really building momentum the way that we want to. We might start to, and then we might kind of feel this energy, but by the end of January that starts to move forward a little bit more. So some of the advice I have for Pisces with Mercury retrograde in Capricorn is when you're feeling triggered by somebody in your social circle, don't react, just kind of sit with it and unpack it and figure out, do you have a boundary that's getting crossed by this person, and what can you do to set boundaries by articulating that in a positive way. Pisces is so empathic that sometimes we worry about hurting people's feelings with setting boundaries, but often what happens is that Pisces will then just slowly remove themselves and inadvertently hurt somebody's feelings without the person knowing why. And so it's better to articulate kind of what you need in that way with your boundaries instead of just ignoring things. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. When Venus enters Aquarius on the 3rd, the area of the chart that's going to be influencing is actually the area that Pisces rules predominantly. So it's the area of the chart that has to do with the subconscious, our connection to spirituality in a more emotion-based way, our connection to our imagination, our imaginal realm. And Venus is the great benefic, it's the lesser benefic, but it brings good fortune and it brings blessings. And so this is actually a really good time for you to do a lot of inner work on self-love and connecting to yourself in a more spiritual way, and also finding ways to heal any of your subconscious fears that you might have about your position in your life and out in the world. It's also an extremely artistic placement. So you might be getting kind of this enhancement of inspiration, and you might be feeling overly romantic and kind of in love with the arts or things like that. So that's a really good energy that's happening for all of January in that area before before Venus enters your sign of Pisces at the end of the month, which happens around the 27th of January. And so with Venus entering your sign of Pisces at the end of the month, it's going to be there for most of February too, the first half of February. And that's a great energy for you. So you kind of get this like time to kind of feel into it in January. And then once it officially enters your sign, it should feel really good. You should feel kind of like this enhancement of self-love or kind of working around that. Mars has been retrograde in Gemini since the end of October. It's been in Gemini since August, and it's going to be finishing its retrograde cycle finally by the 12th. We will be in a little bit of a shadow period still with Mars retrograde, but we should start to feel a release in the area that Mars has been retrograde in the chart. And for the Pisces chart, this is an area that has a lot to do with our communication with others and also our relationship with our family. And so if that's been a theme for you and you've been kind of having some tension in those areas of your life and you feel like there's been a lot of conflict around how you're communicating certain needs with people, especially people in your family or personal life, you might start feeling like there's some resolution around that by mid-January, because also we have Venus and Mars kind of making a conjunction at the beginning too. I think that happens a few days before Mars stations direct, and Venus has been kind of, it's going to be kind of catching up to this trine with Mars to kind of help heal any of the conflict that we've had. Venus is resolution. Mars is kind of, you know, bringing up some of the turbulence, but when they work together, we're kind of having some resolution around some of the conflict that's been happening. So that should be a positive thing for you as well in the area of communication and also your family relationships. Jupiter is going to be going through the first 5 degrees of Aries for the entire month of January. And so that's actually really good for enhancing your relationship with your self-worth and money. And so this is a really good time to kind of be expanding your ideas around what you think you're worth and kind of finding ways to make sure that you're living in a way where you're valuing yourself to the extent that you should be. Jupiter is the planet of abundance and good fortune. So this is an area of your chart too, like your material stability, your financial stability, your sense of self in that way is getting highlighted and hopefully expanded upon in a way that brings you some blessings, especially when it comes to the money that you're making in your life. So that's also pretty positive for you. We're going to have Jupiter in Aries for a few months, so you should be getting those blessings for the next couple of months. The other thing that happens at the beginning of the month is that we have a full moon in Cancer on January 6th at 16 degrees Cancer. And so this is a pretty positive energy for Pisces. Water likes water. Cancer is the cardinal water sign. Pisces is the mutable water sign. And Cancer represents a lot of our connection to how we nurture ourselves as well as others, and also our connection to our home and the way that we feel home within ourselves. Our emotional world is very tied up in the sign of Cancer, and full moons are all about manifesting when they're on the ingress to the full moon, or releasing when they're disseminating from a full moon. And so where this full moon is hitting in the Pisces horoscope chart has everything to do with our creativity and our self-expression in the world. And so for you, it's really important that you find a way to tap into this creative energy, especially with where Venus is hitting. This is a really positive energy for connecting to your inner child and doing things that bring you joy and kind of tap you into that play and romantic kind of feeling that Pisces enjoys having. So this could be a really good day to do some kind of ritual around connecting to those parts of yourself and finding ways to re-inspire yourself. Let's see, that takes care of most of the beginning of January. We enter Aquarius season on the 20th. And then shortly after that, we have a new moon at 1 degree in Aquarius on the 21st. And again, this is hitting in the area of the chart that Pisces normally rules. And so it enhances this kind of desire to tune more into the spiritual side or the artistic side of the self. And this is a really good time to set intentions around that. Another thing that happens with 12th house transits or energies is that we feel inclined to really connect with our soul essence. Like, are we living in alignment with what we feel our soul is needing? And so feeding the soul in ways that are healthy and positive is also a really good intention to set for the new moon on the 21st. After the new moon, the next day, we have Uranus stationing direct, while it's also making a aspect. Let's see, what was it that was happening that day? There is another aspect that's happening. I think it's Mars and Venus. No, I'm sorry. Mars and Mercury are in a sextile to each other the day that Uranus stations direct. So the big theme for me that I've been noticing for the end of the month of January is that for everybody, we're kind of having this shift where we're breaking out of the tension and the conflict that we've been in during the retrograde cycle. And that this day is where we start to really feel that shift. It's right after the new moon, and new moons kind of help clear that space. It's a great time to kind of look at, this is when the year is starting. So I think that the 21st, 22nd are definitely more signatures for that feeling, where we start to kind of see the path more clearly, and we start to feel like we're having more of a breakthrough in ourselves around the direction that we want to move forward in for the year ahead. So that's a big theme for the end of the month. And it's also important to note that because there's so much of this retrograde energy for the first half of January, it's good to not worry too much about your goals until the end of the month. So not saying not to work on goals, but just this isn't the time to see the fruits of the labor. We might start to see more of that towards the end of January, but most likely we'll see more of it in February when we have no retrogrades and things are just kind of moving forward and moving along. So I think that's something to kind of keep in mind for the month, for all signs, not just you Pisces. But this is going to be a pretty introverted start to the year for you as well. So you're probably not going to feel too inclined to be social or want to connect with others too intensely, unless it's within interests or safety of people that you feel comfortable and at home with. So you're probably going to start out this year feeling pretty introspective and into working on yourself in a more personal, private way. And that's definitely supported in this chart. All right, Pisces, that's your horoscope for January 2023. Good luck.